Hello everybody, welcome to another true review. Thank you very much for watching. This is ChromaGun on the Xbox One. It's currently available on the marketplace, priced at £11.99 in the UK. Probably US pricing, that'll make it just under $15. And we have a test chamber game in the classic style of Portal. Now, I have a soft spot for these kind of games. These can be really good and really interesting when they're done correctly. Now, I have played ChromaGun through to its conclusion.
Welcome to the Chromatech test lab.
So, whilst I'm only going to show you a very small portion of the game, I can, comment on the entire thing really as a whole in terms of its difficulty.
We need to test your general mobility.
So this is right at the beginning of the game. I always love this kind of white style of graphics. I think it always looks nice and crisp and clean. Well, this game doesn't look as crisp as some of the other ones, like Cube, for example, or the Turing test, which is probably what it's going to be compared against on the Xbox One, since we don't have a actual Portal game on the Xbox One as of yet, and I don't think Portal 2 or the Orange Box is backwards compatible as of yet. But nevertheless, it's still nicely done. So,
sensational. Please pick up the
we have this narrator going over it. He's kind of like the guy in charge of the test chamber and adds a little bit of, I would say, story. But to be honest with you, the story is not this game's strong point. There's not an awful lot to it. But the whole crux of this game, as you would imagine, with it being called Chroma, is colours. So here's the gun.
ChromaGun, patent pending. That you've heard so much about.
Now, what you have to do, quite simply, is throughout the entire game, you do the same thing, which is the game's biggest weakness, because it does get a little bit repetitive. You have to make droids move out the way, basically what the guy has just said, if you heard that over me talking. Now, as in classic Portal style, certain walls are painted with colour repellent paint, so you can't actually colour those, but other walls can be painted, and drones can be painted as well. So if I match a drone up with yellow, he gets attracted to the yellow wall. Pretty simple. Same again, yellow drone to the yellow wall. Very easy, very straightforward. Now, this is a different kind of variety. We've already got the drone as yellow, so we have to now make the wall yellow to move him out of the way. So far, so simple. And this one we have to do both of them. And this is generally the crux of the entire game. It starts off very simple, gets a little bit more difficult, and then that becomes the biggest problem of the game. It doesn't tend to escalate very well in terms of difficulty.
Please walk towards the exit again.
Now, you do obviously have puzzles which get a bit more complicated. Now I've moved him there, now he's still in the way, so I've now got to attract him to a secondary wall, and he does obviously retain tethered to that first wall as well. Now, early on in the game you've only got the one colour, but you do obviously get your other primary colours later on in the game. Now, this is a puzzle where I wish they'd have made more use of it. It's like you're on a time restraint. You've got to quickly dash before the droid gets there, and I can't remember another instance of that happening again through the entire game. So it's a little bit of a shame, really. So I'll just take you through the early levels here, just going through what you've got to do.
Dangerously radioactive isotopes,
just so you can get an idea of it.
Designed not to be painted by it. That being said, please do not sniff, touch, or
Luckily, the levels do load in pretty quickly. Another example. This is something you'll be doing quite commonly. You'll be moving them out the way like this, and then attracting them elsewhere. Now, I think I've done that wrong, actually. Oh yes, this is this one. You have to attract these over here to get them out of the way of the door. There we go, job done, I think. Yeah. So it's straightforward enough. So I've jumped a little bit of ahead now just to show you the next level of complexity. Now we get switches which we have to get a drone to sit upon. We do also have colour mixing introduced to us for the first time. Obviously we've not got an orange gun at the moment, but basic colour mixing, red and yellow make orange, and he hovers over the switch and lets us through. These security drones as well, as you notice from the first ones that you saw, covered in spikes, these ones are actually damaging to you. If you touch them you will get damaged, and later on some of them actually are sentient and actually chase you, and you actually have to stick them to walls while they're chasing you around, so you can actually die and fail. You just get a simple restart of the game then, basically. So this is a black drone. If you mix all the colors, all the primary colors together, the wall or the drone will go black, which makes that impossible then to actually use. Now it's actually black in here, but the achievement list makes reference to it being brown, but that in my opinion is most definitely black. Or if we was very fussy about it, there's probably a little hint of blue in there as well, but it's certainly not a brown. But anyway, this is introducing you to colour mixing. Again, we've got orange to orange, so we mix the yellow there. Yellow and blue obviously makes green. And now this one's a slightly different kind of variation in the puzzle. It's tethered to that wall and we need it there, so we just literally have to change the wall so it's black, and then it lets us through. So it's pretty fun, it's pretty straightforward, and it is an interesting idea. But as you can see with that level there, he was doing the same thing over and over again. It didn't actually escalate or didn't actually make things more complicated. So now we actually have the 3-tier gun here, which is simply change by using X, Y and B to paint the walls different colours, as in, there we go. And obviously you can mix the colours. You can have red and blue will make purple, blue and yellow makes green, and that's pretty much the crux of it there. So it's very basic colour matching there. Now what I most like about this game, which they have to be commended for, is, if I can access it in the settings here, they have put a colorblind mode in, which is fantastic, because the amount of games I see that use color don't actually cater for colorblind people, which is a shame really, because a lot of gamers are colorblind, and the use of simple symbols makes them able to play the game. So well done for that. That is something they need to be commended about. I mean, a lot of games just don't cover that at all. So you join me a bit later in the game now, and this is the kind of third different type of level that there actually is to the game, and I'll let the narrator speak for a little bit.
Remember that drop in our stock I mentioned? It seems like we're going to have to shut this place down. And since the testing track is not strictly speaking on the up and up, or what you might know as legal, well, I don't want to bore you with legal talk. Point is, in this case, shutting this place down means burning it to the ground. So you may want to, run! Go, right!
Now, the more observant of you will probably recognise that music. This music is quite a commonly used piece of music. I've actually heard this game in quite a few Xbox games already, and people who would watch Geek and Sundry a Critical Role show that they do on there. They actually use that as combat music as well. So that's one of the game's weakest points, is that the music that they do use is not originally composed. I'm not sure if every piece is stock music, but that piece certainly is. Now, when I got to this point in the game, I thought, wow, it's going to change in style drastically, but unfortunately we do end up back in the white test chambers, fully lit, very, very quickly. So this is a very short-lived section, which would have been quite nice to actually experience it. Do get introduced to these pads here as well, which are electrified pads. If you touch them, you die, and you have to just get a drone to touch them to disable them. Very simple, really. And that's literally all there is to it. There's not much else, really. Later on, there is reflective surfaces, where if you fire your paint, it does bounce off at an angle, so you do have to angle shots around surfaces. But the level of complexity doesn't increase at a fast enough rate, and then the game suddenly ends. I mean, yes, I got stuck for a little bit. I'm quite happy to admit that, but I didn't completely get stuck and wasn't scratching my head for a good half an hour in a chamber. It was just usually like a few repeats and you was done, which means you can complete this game in as little as a few hours, which is a shame, really, because I think with a bit more complexity and a bit more variation on the puzzles, it would have offered an awful lot more value for money. I mean, graphically, it's nice enough. I do like the white test chamber look. I don't think it's as crisp as it could have been, as I've mentioned already, I think, but it is pretty good. Does a pretty good job. I mean, the music is, like I said, almost non-existent, and what is used seems to be stock music, which is not originally composed by the developers there. I mean, I may be wrong. They may have composed some original music at some point during the game, but the standout sections of music just generally are stock footage. So this one's a little bit of a tricky one, because whilst the game is fun to play, I think the $11.99 asking price for what amounts to, like I say, 2, maybe 3 hours of play, depending on how fast you're able to progress through the chambers with very, very little replay value, is a little bit too much to ask. The achievements are very, very easy, so this is going to be an achievement hunter's dream. Even without a guide, like I say, it's a 2-3 hour game. With a guide, you'll probably rattle through this in about an hour and a half, maybe. Hello. So it's not that very, not that complicated, and not going to pose much of a problem to get the full 1000 gamer score. So we're going to give, under our new scoring system, ChromaGun, we're going to recommend that it is a purchase that you do make, but when it goes on sale slightly, we just think the $11.99 asking price is a little bit too steep for the amount of content that you get, and that the game doesn't escalate in terms of difficulty fast enough or rapidly enough, and runs out of ideas very, very early. It shows its hand pretty much halfway through the game, what you've basically got to do, and for the second half of the game you are just doing the same thing over and over again to the game's very strange and odd conclusion. It's also seriously lacking in story, whilst the little bit of story that there is doesn't seem to go anywhere, and doesn't seem to have a resolution and conclusion at the end of it. So yeah, for the moment it's definitely one to pick up when it does hit a sale. So I hope you enjoyed that review, guys. Please remember to click the TrueTube button at the end of the video to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.